Hi and welcome to a weekly outlook on Monday the 15th of January. This is Kim speaking. Looking at the euro dollar first to start off with as ever. I was going to look at Bitcoin first, but this has stolen it. So last week we had a bounce on the Tuesday, it's a marginal bounce there, but it started working through Wednesday, Thursday. We've seen this sort of solid push up on the euro dollar here on some rather bullish minutes coming out of the ECB. Now it's looking like it's got some further potential. I'm going to run up the time frames here, so looking at the weeklies, and it's not really showing me too much indifferent apart from I have got the pivots on here. Let me just the weekly R2 pivot, which it's just running through. So a weekly monthly R2 pivot. Let's get looking at without pivots there for a moment, and it's not got a lot to hold it. Looking at the monthlies, I was just running through this a moment ago, and it's at that point of the prior lows here, with the bodies of the prior lows. But if you look across to the right, that's where we're sitting at the moment. Can it push through these? Well, it looks like it might do at the moment. Momentum seems to be with it. There is a slight divergence on the RSI, maybe on the short time frame. I say short time frame, but small setting that we're using here, showing an edge of divergence. However, it could easily run through towards the 200, maybe the monthly 100 at some point. So at the moment, still it's cleared out some of its resistance. It has got a bit of resistance, as I say, around the bodies, the bodies, those prior lows. If we can get back above there, well, then it's looking more bullish as we go through. Now, I said last week I'm sort of bearish long term on the US dollar. This is an inverted dollar, effectively dollar index inverted, so it's only going to really show the same pattern. But I will just come back to that for a moment and show you pretty much the same pattern. Week, it's going down towards its monthly 200 there, looking weak at the moment. So the question again was there divergence sort of happening? Well, on this dollar index, it doesn't seem to be so much of a divergence. We are actually seeing a lower RSI, so maybe that means that it will continue running. It doesn't mean to say it will run in a straight line, and some of these moves that we're seeing, you do wonder if they'll just get some sort of healthy-ish retracement. But for now, as I say, dollar I'm bearish, euro I'm bullish on at the moment. Now let's look elsewhere. Let's look at the pound. On this weekly basis, has just come through onto the monthly as well. Just keep an eye on things, because it has this morning, as it's pointed out to me, run into its monthly 34. It's an important thing here is whether it can hold into this, or it's having a bit of a retracement on the short time frames at the moment. But maybe we can just carry on pushing through here. Side of that, it's weekly wise and everything else, it's certainly broken the trend over the last few weeks. It's making it look like it's got some. Certainly looks like it's got some more possibility to the upside. Obviously fits with the weak US dollar, of course. Daily perspective, when I'm looking at this and looking at the monthly pivots, well, we are a bit pushing things a little bit here. This regression channel's been working particularly well for me over the last few months. The price keeps coming back to the midpoint. There's a chance at some point it may come back to that. The weekly pivot sits around about that same level, so it would be interesting watching it over the next few days. But chopping around on the short time frame, there's no real trading this afternoon. I say no real trading, there'll be trading, but it'll be weaker with the US markets closed. Okay, that's the pound. Let's look at the yen. I'm going to come through on the fundamental data in a short while. Yen, again, strong against the US dollar. Is starting to break and looks like it. I mean, last week really bearish bar there. This week we've already seen a sell-off below that, heading again towards its weekly 100. Bigger time frame, it still looks rather choppy on this time frame, but when you bring it to this time frame, you can also see the potential it has of breaking out of that wedge. So it could well pull out the bottom of that wedge and continue to the downside there. If the dollar weakness continues, well, we could see that at some point we'll get down to that monthly 200 if it starts breaking out of this, and potentially even more. Okay, that's the higher time frames coming down to daily time frames. Well, We do, with all these currencies, have the weekly pivots sitting either below or up above them. In this case, there is the chance of retracements at some point back to these, of course, and that in itself may give sell possibilities later in the week. But for now, it's selling off relatively strong towards its S2. Aussie dollar. Once again, just looking at monthly first on this, and it's it's started the month well. It looks like it's pushing through that monthly 50 now towards its monthly 200. More weekly perspective, it looks even tidier. Clearing through the properly clearing through that weekly 200 and shoving onwards, and it could get up to that 0.85, 0.805 area even. Sort of zone back into those prior highs there. Certainly a target at some point maybe. So it's still looking bullish on the commodity driven Aussie dollar. Just come down to the dailies here, and just a good point for the Aussie dollar. It had a reasonable range last month, and the pivots are not at all pinched, and it's got plenty of scope into those. So I'm still, as I said, looking probably towards that R2 area before we may start getting a slowdown into those prior highs. But overall, it still looks relatively bullish. That said, there has been a divergence rolling on dailies. This has been rolling and rolling, and it's still rolling. And it looks like just the pure momentum of this market is taking it up further. So it's taking it away from the initial sort of divergence that was kicking in a couple of weeks ago. Last week it was diverging, previous week it's diverging. Last week it was diverging into its R1. It's still sort of sitting there, but it's broken out this morning already and charging ahead. Okay, and finally the Canadian dollar. Just we'll come out to the monthly on this first, just to look at where we are. It's broken through its monthly 50 now. And again, this looks like, well, it's pushing down potentially towards that the monthly 200. Has certainly got some possibilities. Now looking at the weeklies. So weekly wise here, it's just consolidating around this sort of phase here. And in fact, if I bring the dailies in, it makes it a bit clearer. It's a bit of consolidation, but within that consolidation there's a sort of a daily pivot swing that's triggered today. It air kissed its weekly pivot. There's the potential, of course, of all these markets. As I said, they've got ahead of themselves a little bit. The yen hasn't significantly. The pound and the euro, particularly the euro, pushed quite strongly ahead. This has had a sort of a slower reaction. Still got potential to roll over further. It still looks weak to me, but just be wary of if the euro really starts selling off. Maybe the yen may get a bit more of a bounce. And at some point get back towards that weekly pivot. It's been in such a tight old range, but I still like the downside at the moment. Okay, that's pretty much it on the general currencies, the main currencies, the majors. Just have a quick look at gold. Don't seem to look at this every week, but again, it's one of those. It's quite a mirror of the Aussie dollar, with the exception of being the odd spike in it. But it's effectively mirroring the Aussie dollar here, and we're seeing this surge up on the dailies here. It's got prior highs there that it may run into around about the same time as the Aussie dollar hits. We'll see. But again, I'd be watching out for that R2 on but it may just be a good target at the moment. Retracements may be opportunities to push back towards those prior highs. So certainly looks like it's got some legs in it still yet. There is a divergence there. It has been diverging. It diverged all of Friday and pushed on, and it's diverging at the moment now. It's just, but as I say, it still looks relatively strong. Of course, at some point that may roll over. There may be opportunities to buy into it, maybe off the weekly pivot, or if it does, that weekly pivot may come with the daily 8s. If it comes back to that, may give it an opportunity back for the upside to the prior highs. If it was to break a bit further, it would be worth waiting to see its reaction on its daily 21. Okay, that's it for me. In that respect, let's look at the fundamentals coming out this week and just run through them very quickly. There's very little today. Monday the 15th, we've got a bank holiday in the US, Martin Luther King Day, so the equity markets and the Chicago options will be closed, I believe. All of them. CME will. Looking through the rest of the markets then, on Tuesday we've got the UK inflation figures out, and I think that'll probably be one of the key numbers, that and the retail sales on Friday, which is expecting to come in poor. So potentially a mixed bag inflation. Well, hopefully, say hopefully, but maybe it's expected to edge down to 3% this month. We'll see. The sales may help that inflation figure come down a bit. Aside of that, we've really then got the Bank of Canada monetary policy reports, etc. 3 o'clock on Wednesday. Quite key. They've been more bullish, and it's expected a 0.25 interest rate increase. So watch out for that Canadian dollar. Press conference following that at 4:15 on Wednesday. Looking further down in terms of time-wise, Thursday Australian reports. Job report at 12:30 a.m. UK time, so always a bit of fireworks around that one. And then nothing too much until, as I said, Friday morning 9:30 UK retail sales. The rest of the data coming out of those days is relatively light in terms of normal market reaction. So big things then: inflation Tuesday and retail sales for the UK, and then on Wednesday the Canadian Bank of Canada rate statements, etc., where there's expected an interest rate increase. Have a great one. Bye for now.